Number 4. When bestowed upon evolutionary material creatures, it causes spirit to strive for the mastery of energy matter through the mediation of mind. And here we've come to one of the great fundamentals in these papers. In the time-space universes, energy matter is dominant, save in personality, where spirit, through the mediation of mind, is striving for the mastery. And I think that that principle explains a whole heck of a lot of what's going on out here in time and space. This is a reflection of the whole evolution of the Supreme Being on the deity level and of human progression of the paradise ascension on the human level. Spirit can't touch matter. Mind can. And a personality can subordinate that mind which dominates matter to that spirit which must stabilize mind. That the personality can do by free will choice. Number 5, personality, while devoid of identity, can unify the identity of any living energy system. It dominates the system. It is the yellow of the material object we were talking about. It pervades the whole of that system. It's dependent on the living mechanism for expression, but it expresses itself by dominating the entire system. And again, I would go back to the string and the beads. Personality takes an agglomeration of beads and produces a necklace. Personality patternizes such a system. Six, personality discloses only qualitative response to the personality circuit in contradistinction to the three energies which show both qualitative and quantitative response to gravity. And that's why the personality circuit is non-computable, as we observed over in the paper on the universe of universes. That's on page 133. Paragraph 3, personality gravity is non-computable. We recognize the circuit, but we cannot measure either qualitative or quantitative realities responsive thereto. There is no mass to personality, but there is mass to mind. There's mass in matter. There's spiritual mass. The drawing power of the eternal sun apparently grows greater as we near paradise, because we are becoming more spiritual, hence more massive at the spiritual level, and our mass is more responsive to spiritual gravity. But the Father's drawing power in the personality circuit is just as strong out here as it is anywhere. It's independent of distance, and there is no mass to vary. Seven, personality is changeless in the presence of change. It points out that the personality never does change, and if it did, it wouldn't be you anymore. And the thing that does change is your growing soul. 8, personality can make a gift to God, the dedication of the free will to the doing of the will of God. And I think it's the only thing we can give God. The only possible gift. And actually, this is an expression of love. In the final analysis, if you really love God, Holy Toledo, you want to do what he wants.
What wouldn't you do for him?
Well, sure. You want to do what he wants. This is no chore. This is a delightful and romantic adventure in living in an exciting way. This is no hair shirt that you wear, in self-ostentatious righteousness. This is no manifestation of piosity. This may result in unconscious piety. Gee whiz, just imagine Jesus saying, when they called him good, "Why do you call me good?" This is real piety. He wasn't thinking about being good. He wasn't standing in front of the mirror of his mind in self-admiration saying, I'm really good, you know? Nine, personality is characterized by morality, awareness of relativity of relationship with other persons. It discerns conduct levels and choosingly discriminates between them. We can find something in the papers on that. If you want, are you making notes of these?
Yeah.
All right, start with page 191 and just put down FF, meaning the following pages. It's the whole rest of the paper.
For this particular 191.
Discussing morality. That's in the tail end, the second half of the paper on the seven master spirits, where they start with cosmic mind, and in the next section, they discuss morals, virtue, and personality. This paper in here is the third full-dress discussion of personality in the papers. Intelligence alone cannot explain the moral nature. Morality, virtue, is indigenous to human personality. Moral intuition, the realization of duty, is a component of human mind endowment and is associated with the other inalienables of human nature, scientific curiosity and spiritual insight. Man's mentality far transcends that of his animal cousins, but it is his moral and religious natures that especially distinguish him from the animal world. And then they point out the true nature of morality, that an animal discriminates, but he discriminates only means, whereas man can discriminate ends. And this moral capacity in human nature enables man to have prophetic vision. He can examine an end of a course of conduct, and he can respond to the stimulus of potential evil. He can choosingly discriminate a better course of conduct without actually involving himself in the evil of a less desirable course of conduct. It is because of this that actual evil does not have to appear in time and space. Potential evil must appear. But we can respond, we can take a look at a situation and say, not for me. We make our decision not based on traversing the route, but based on a prior examination of that route. We say too many detours. Animals learn ordinarily only from leaping. Humans can learn from looking as well as from leaping. I'll cheerfully concede most of us learn like the animals do from leaping, but we could learn from looking. This paper goes on. It discusses Urantia personality.
Are you back on 1225?
No, I'm sticking on 194. This is a gold mine in here.
Oh, mine too. I got mine all lined up.
On 194, we tie in to statement 10. Personality is unique, absolutely unique. It is unique in time and space. It is unique in eternity and on paradise. It is unique when bestowed. There are no duplicates. It is unique during every moment of existence. It is unique in relation to God. He is no respecter of persons, but neither does he add them together, for they are non-addable. They are associable, but non-totalable.
That denies quantity, but verifies
Yes.
quality.
That's right.
Pumps up my 4 tires, too.
Yes. Let's read over on page 194 what it says about that.
Okay, let me see what.
Starting in paragraph 2, personality is a unique endowment of original nature, whose existence is independent of and antecedent to the bestowal of the thought adjusters. Nevertheless, the presence of the adjuster does augment the qualitative manifestation of personality. Thought adjusters, when they come forth from the Father, are identical in nature, but personality is diverse, original, and exclusive. And the manifestation of personality is further conditioned and qualified by the nature and quantities of the associated energies of a material, mindful, and spiritual nature, which constitute the organismal vehicle for personality manifestation. Personalities may be similar, but they are never the same. Persons of a given series, type, order, or pattern may and do resemble one another, but they are never identical. Personality is that feature of an individual which we know and which enables us to identify such a being at some future time, regardless of the nature and extent of changes in form, mind, or spirit status. Personality is that part of an individual which enables us to recognize and positively identify that person as the one we have previously known, no matter how much he may have changed, because of the modification of the vehicle of expression and manifestation of his personality. Yellow is yellow. And no matter how he changes in shape, he's still the same hue. And it's the hue that we recognize as him. The great challenge that has been given to mortal man is this.
What page, Bill?
1284. Will you decide to personalize the experienceable value meanings of the cosmos into your own evolving selfhood? Or by rejecting survival, will you allow these secrets of supremacy to lie dormant, awaiting the action of another creature at some other time who will, in his way, attempt a creature contribution to the evolution of the finite God? But that will be his contribution to the Supreme, not yours. The great struggle in this universe age has been between the potential and the actual, the seeking for actualization by all that is as yet unexpressed. If mortal man proceeds upon the paradise adventure, he's following the motions of time which flow as currents within the stream of eternity. If mortal man rejects the eternal career, he is moving counter to the stream of events in the finite universe. The mechanical creation moves on inexorably in accordance with the unfolding purpose of the Paradise Father, but the volitional creation has the choice of accepting or rejecting the role of personality participation in the adventure of eternity. Mortal man cannot destroy the supreme values of human existence, but he can very definitely prevent the evolution of these values in his own personal experience. To the extent that the human self thus refuses to take part in the paradise ascent, to just that extent is the supreme delayed in achieving divinity expression in the grand universe. Into the keeping of mortal man has been given not only the adjuster presence of the Paradise Father, but also control over the destiny of an infinitesimal fraction of the future of the Supreme. For as man attains human destiny, so does the Supreme achieve destiny on deity levels. And so the decision awaits each of you, as it once awaited each of us. Will you fail the God of time, who is so dependent upon the decisions of the finite mind? This is cosmic morality. Will you fail the Supreme Personality of the universes by the slothfulness of animalistic retrogression? Will you fail the great brother of all creatures who is so dependent on each creature? Can you allow yourself to pass into the realm of the unrealized when before you lies the enchanting vista of the universe career, the divine discovery of the Paradise Father, and the divine participation in the search for and evolution of the God of supremacy? God's gifts, his bestowal of reality, are not divorcements from himself. He does not alienate creation from himself, but he has set up tensions in the creation's circling paradise. God first loves man and confers upon him the potential of immortality, eternal reality. And as man loves God, so does man become eternal in actuality. And here is mystery. The more closely man approaches God through love, the greater the reality, actuality of that man. The more man withdraws from God, the more nearly he approaches non-reality, cessation of existence. When man consecrates his will to the doing of the Father's will, when man gives God all that he has, then does God make that man more than he is.
That last bit puzzles me just a bit. God makes that man more than he is.
More than that man
That's
is.
when he gives the spiritual strength to grow.
That's when you grow. Your soul grows. Then you become a little less animal, a little more human, and in time, a little more spiritual. This is how man becomes a finaliter.
If we get to the simple thesis of just choosing, how could anyone choose cessation?
I don't know.
I can't comprehend it at all. It seems
It's evidently
there's
possible.
two choices: cessation or God's way. Well, how could anyone choose?
I'll tell you,
that?
Julia, how it can be done. The thing can happen because of the slothfulness of animalistic retrogression. I don't think any human being ever would choose not to survive,
That's what I,
but I think a human being might start a series of choices.
That would
just
result.
being slow.
In each instance, choosing the easy way, the lower way, and eventually the cumulative effect of those choices would make it impossible for him to stop the momentum of choice.
Doesn't it say that someplace in
Yes,
there?
yes.
I can imagine a person just not wanting to climb the steep hill.
Again, not if
What is
the
it?
way means cessation.
The acts of today are the destiny of tomorrow. As you choose, so do you become.
Bill, you in your early life, you were raised out of any church, right?
Yes.
Without any religious training whatsoever?
No, I had religious training.
Oh.
I got it from my mother.
Oh,
I knew the sheiks of Israel,
okay.
the judges, pardon me, but they were sheiks.
I was going to say that if someone was raised without any religious training whatsoever, without any concept of a first cause or God, then they couldn't really make a choice until they had a concept.
I don't know.
To choose.
They got a thought adjuster.
That's right.
I had no religious training whatsoever.
You,
Well, I mean, they mentioned God occasionally, but I had no training.
I'll tell you this, Bun.
How about moral?
The training which I had was
Yes. The basis.
Bible training,
You're right.
and
That I had.
it was at a very childish level. We never got into the Bible per se. I had something called a child's book of the Bible with woodcuts in it. And when I was 17, I was in the service, and I woke up to the fact that I was a real agnostic. The anthropomorphic picture I had of God was a white bearded version of my old man, king size. And just like the proofs that you get from a photographer, you know, the red ones, this thing had faded out imperceptibly. And when I got the old picture out, it was blank. I never had any struggle. My anthropomorphic God just faded on me. It was gone. And I got interested in the whole idea listening to a debate in the barracks between a real sharp atheistic friend of mine and a fairly dumb Catholic. And the atheist won the debate. But I was very conscious of the fact that he won it because he was far more clever. He could twist the Catholic in knots. And my Catholic buddy blew his stack, and in a very profane and vulgar way said that the priest could prove there was a God, and my atheist friend with equal profanity said he couldn't. And my Catholic friend with still more profanity allowed as how this could be arranged. And my atheist friend took him up, and I spoke for the first time. I said, I want to come along. Because it suddenly hit me that it was very important to listen to this debate. And that, of course, was a draw. I was very impressed with the fact that Jerry couldn't prove there wasn't a God, and old Father Murdoch couldn't prove that there was. And I set about thinking. And I used to have a girl in Georgetown. When I took her home, I had a lot of time to kill because by that time I'd missed all the trains for Quantico. The next one was at 3:15 in the morning. And I used to go to a place which I now think of as my church. My church is the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington. And I'd roll Bull Durham cigarettes. I've sat there during cherry blossoms, and I've sat there when it was snowing, and I've sat there when it was darn hot and darn cold. And I would meditate, looking at the Washington Monument and the dome of the Capitol and the moon and the stars and old Abe sitting up there in the shadow. And somewhere along at that time, I came to the realization that there was a God. I symbolized him in my thinking with a rather peculiar name. I called him the Great Source and Center. I put that in writing so that I know I'm not reading that back into the thing. And I became just as certain about him as I am today. And that's before I read any of this blue book business. And this became a settled thing, like dried apples and rainwater, and you use bricks for construction in some buildings, and gravity, and 2 and 2 is 4. I mean, this didn't strike me as being any particular unusual discovery. It was like suddenly realizing that you're breathing, you know? A very common thing, and a very finely settled thing. Now, I've learned a lot about God since, but I've never been more certain about God since that time. I put it to you this way. If every human being I met told me, this is wrong, I would suspect my sanity, but I would not doubt God. I would simply say, I guess I'm paranoid on this subject. But as I check over with my fellow men, I discover that there's a lot of people know God in that sense. When God sends personality out here, he doesn't kick it out, he encircuits it. He encircuits it. I think this, when man worships God, and let's say that in a simpler, more understandable way, when man discovers his love for God, worship to me is synonymous with love. It is a special word which we use to express the love which a creature would have for a creator. If it isn't love, then I don't know anything about worship. This love seeks nothing, asks for nothing, simply is an outpouring of attitude. I think that goes over the personality circuit. I think this is how God knows his creatures love him. And this would apply to creatures who are not indwelt by thought adjusters, like an Adam, for example, or a seraphim, who are in the personality circuit, centering in the Father. All moral creatures are in that circuit. Well, should we go on with our inventory? Personality responds directly to other personality presence. We were discussing that the other day when we hypothesized Bud and Betty up on the Second Mansion World, and he's strolling down Gloria and Hallelujah Boulevard, and she's fishing in one of the streams, and all of a sudden he stops and Betty looks up for her fishing. I'm sure that happens. I've got another theory. Have you ever been working all alone in your study, perhaps, and suddenly the hairs get stiff on the back of your neck, and you have a feeling that you're not alone, and you look around and laugh because you are alone, but maybe you aren't. Only, maybe your personality is registering the presence of another personality, only that other personality doesn't have skin on him, see? Now, I don't want to make a thing out of this, but I have a feeling that sometimes this feeling we get is for real. A personality did come near us. And the only equipment we've got that would register that is our own personality, and I think it registers. I think we tend to inhibit this. Let's say we know we're alone. This feeling tends to rise, and good common sense tells us there isn't anybody in the house, so we stifle it. That's a sophisticated response to that feeling. And we might as well be sophisticated, because if we get up and look, we aren't going to find anything, you know? I think this is how we know upon the mansion world. This is a sense which is attached to personality when it is operating a life vehicle.
Bill, they state in the papers that many people have made the third circle.
Mm-hmm.
At first, when I first read it, I thought nobody makes it hardly, and then I went on and found out that many make it, and they have a guardian seraphim.
Sure.
There's personality.
Sure, but if it was there all the time, I don't think they would sense the arrival.
Is it there all the time?
I don't know. Oh yes, I think so. There's two of them there all the time. Because they got two cherubim associated with them who can stand in when one of the seraphim has to, stop to gas up.
Go out for a cup of coffee.
Yeah. I had one experience along this line. On a train, crossing the vestibule between two Pullmans. And I can still remember reaching out for the doorknob. With my hand on the doorknob, I turned around to look at the guy who had passed me in this vestibule between the two cars. He had his hand on the doorknob and he was looking at me. And we both grinned at each other in a real silly way. Kind of embarrassed. We caught each other staring at each other. And something had to be done about this, so one of us spoke saying, "Do I know you?" And then we exchanged names. I said, "I'm Bill Stadler." He said, "I'm Bill Hershey." And as little boys, we used to play together. I hadn't seen Bill Hershey since he was about 7 years of age. And he certainly didn't look like this rather broken down character I was looking at then, Now, why the dickens did we didn't look like we used to look. Why did we stop and look at each other? That's the only time that ever happened to me. But it happened once. Well, we're redone. 12. Personality is the one thing that can be added to spirit, thus illustrating the primacy of the Father in relation to the Son. Mind does not have to be added to spirit. And I'll add, thus illustrating the primacy of the Son in relation to the conjoint actor. Spirit is always conscious, minded in some way. Because God, who is spirit, is always minded. But spirit is not necessarily personal, unless the Father bestows personality upon such a spirit. In other words, this goes back to our sequence story of the origin of deity. 13. Here's the quote I was looking for and couldn't find. It's right here. Personality may survive mortal death with identity in the surviving soul. The adjuster and the personality are changeless. The relationship between them, the soul, in the soul, is nothing but change, continuing evolution. And if this change, this growth, ceased, the soul would cease. The divinity of the adjuster is changeless. The identity of the personality is changeless. And the relationship between them is nothing but change. And then number 14 intrigues me very much. Personality is uniquely conscious of time, and this is something other than the time perception of mind or spirit. You want to note down page 135? About the middle of the page, the text reads, "There are 3 different levels of time cognizance. First, mind-perceived time. consciousness of sequence, motion, and a sense of duration. Now, I think that's what we talk about when we speak of time consciousness, number one. Second, spirit perceived time. Insight into motion Godward and the awareness of the motion of ascent to levels of increasing divinity. I think an adjuster has that kind of time consciousness, but that's not what we call time consciousness. And third, personality creates a unique time sense out of insight into reality, plus a consciousness of presence and an awareness of duration. Unspiritual animals know only the past and live in the present. Spirit-indwelt man has powers of prevision, insight. He may visualize the future. Only forward-looking and progressive attitudes are personally real. Static ethics and traditional morality is just slightly superanimal. Nor is Stoicism a high order of self-realization. Ethics and morals become truly human when they are dynamic and progressive, alive with universe reality. Let's take another quote here. They're discussing time and eternity. In the evolutionary universes, eternity is temporal everlastingness, the everlasting now. The personality of the mortal creature may eternalize by self-identification with the indwelling spirit. Such a consecration of will is tantamount to the realization of eternity reality of purpose. This means that the purpose of the creature has become fixed with regard to the succession of moments, or the passage of time. Stated otherwise, the succession of moments will witness no change in creature purpose. A million or a billion moments makes no difference. Number has ceased to have meaning with regard to the creature's purpose. Thus does creature choice plus God's choice eventuate in the eternal realities of the never-ending union of the Spirit of God and the nature of man in the everlasting service of the children of God and of their Paradise Father. What they're saying there is this: if you make a final choice for God, that choice transcends time, because no amount of time will witness any change in your choice. This is an eternal choice. Number doesn't have any meaning anymore as concerns that purpose. This is going to be true a billion years from now, a trillion years from now, a gazillion years from now. No, time makes no difference. There is a direct relationship between maturity and the unit of time consciousness in any given intellect. The time unit may be a day, a year, or a longer period. But inevitably, it is the criterion by which the conscious self evaluates the circumstances of life, and by which the conceiving intellect measures and evaluates the facts of temporal existence. And I think personality is involved in this. Experience, wisdom, and judgment are the concomitants of the lengthening of the time unit in mortal experience. As the human mind reckons backward into the past, it is evaluating past experience for the purpose of bringing it to bear on a present situation. As mind reaches out into the future, it is attempting to evaluate the future significance of possible action. And having thus reckoned with both experience and wisdom, the human will exercises judgment decision in the present, and the plan of action, thus born of the past and the future, becomes existent. Do you see how you're gradually rising above time in your thinking? In the maturity of the developing self, the past and future are brought together to illuminate the true meaning of the present. As the self matures, it reaches farther and farther back into the past for experience, while its wisdom forecasts seek to penetrate deeper and deeper into the unknown future. And as the conceiving self extends this reach ever further into both past and future, so does judgment become less and less dependent on the momentary present. In this way, does decision action begin to escape from the fetters of the moving present, while it begins to take on the aspects of past-future significance. And then that wonderful statement, patience is exercised by those mortals whose time units are short. True maturity transcends patience by a forbearance born of real understanding. To become mature is to live more intensely in the present, at the same time escaping from the limitations of the present. The plans of maturity founded on past experience are coming into being in the present in such manner as to enhance the values of the future. The time unit of immaturity concentrates meaning value into the present moment in such a way as to divorce the present of its true relationship to the not present, the past future. The time unit of maturity is proportioned so to reveal the coordinate relationship of past, present, future, so that the self begins to gain insight into the wholeness of events, begins to view the landscape of time from the panoramic perspective of broadened horizons, begins perhaps to suspect the non-beginning, non-ending, eternal continuum, the fragments of which are called time.
Well, I think that is...
This is writing. This is writing.
It's thinking, too.
On the levels of the infinite and the absolute, the moment of the present contains all of the past as well as all of the future. I am signifies also I was and I will be. And this represents our best concept of eternity and the eternal. On the absolute and eternal level, potential reality is just as meaningful as actual reality. Only on the finite level and to time-bound creatures does there appear to be such a vast difference. To God as absolute, an ascending mortal who has made the eternal decision is already a paradise finality. But the Universal Father, through the indwelling thought adjuster, is not thus limited in awareness, but can also know of and participate in every temporal struggle with the problems of the creature ascent from animal-like to God-like levels of existence. You know, real English moves the heck out of me, and they have come awfully close to saying something that couldn't be said there.
Yes.
You see, this is what it means when it says, personality creates a unique time sense out of insight into reality plus a consciousness of presence and an awareness of duration. Now, confound it. As we experience this process, and it's begun in life, and each of us have lived long enough to be aware of it, we do reach back into the past for experience. We do think ahead into the future. And it is the past future which conditions our present judgments. Now you let that process begin to involve a very large number of years. Something more than many, you know? When you can think back 1 billion years and think ahead 1 billion years, you are beginning to react to things which are not, but will be. And as your wisdom becomes accurate, you're beginning to live outside of the present moment. And this is a kind of intellectual transcendence of time. This is how I think I get a little feeling of what an Epsonite would be. If you extend this far enough, holy Toledo, you know, by the time you're coping in units of trillions of years, you're thinking, this is your normal thinking unit, see? Or thousands of trillions of years, or millions of trillions of years. And this is going to happen someday. We'll be around. God, Dorothy, you'll be old then.
Bill, do you have time to expound just briefly on this? To become mature is to live more intensely in the present, at the same time escaping from the limitations of the present.
That's what we're talking about. Everything you're doing in the present becomes tremendously more exciting. Elsewhere in the book, I've forgotten where, it says, the present, divorced from the past future, becomes indescribably trivial. This is boredom. As you reach farther back into the past, as you project farther forward into the future, you invest the moving present with tremendous meaning and value and significance. You're swinging. You know what I mean? It's exciting. This is the antithesis of boredom. This is the technique. This is the mind technique. This is the personality technique, whereby you season the present with all the exciting spices and condiments available to a creature.